served for 6 years in the Tennessee House. I enjoyed it. I served with Bill Dunn. In fact, we were roommates for 3 years over there. I was on education for 6 years, and then I chaired a subcommittee in education for the last 4. And the thing I love about education is it's, one, I got my degree to be an educator. I taught for 4 years back in Texas. I taught a Christian school and a public school. And then I got out of the business because we started having a whole bunch of kids and things got a little complicated with, so I needed to find a career that paid a little bit better. So I got in the world of insurance, and I've done that for the last 30 years. But when I was at the State House, one of the things that the speaker asked me to chair is I've got some kind of a different exposure to education than traditional people. Yes, I do have a teaching license. Yes, I've taught in public school and Christian school. But in our own household, we have Christian schooled our children, we have public schooled our children, we have Montessori schooled our children, and for 5 years we homeschool our children. I'm currently working on my master's, so I'm back in the college level, which gives me a totally different perspective of how colleges work, because I'm actually in there living it myself. I got my bachelor's degree years ago. Going back to school after 30 years it's a challenge. But I get to see, my kids would come home and grumble about the University of Tennessee and what they did, and I really didn't have a whole perspective because I wasn't there. Now I kind of get it because I'm there and I go through some of the craziness that they've kind of gone through. And I just love the whole education process. It's different for every group of people. I sometimes have struggles to believe that we can come up with one program that everybody can get behind, and that's kind of what the mayor was looking at. He wants to find out what's working, what's not. Let's focus on what's working. Let's accelerate it, because a lot of times our schools have things and they're kind of keeping it to themselves. I've only officially been on the job since the 1st, but that was a Saturday, and then the 4th was a holiday, so I've had 4 days last week and 2 days this week. I've gotten to tour 5 schools already. There is some really neat things going on in Knox County. I toured a CTE facility out in South Doyle where they are doing 3D printing. They printed a dragon about this big, it's got wings, the whole thing. Their culinary arts school was preparing a 3-layer cake. I've got pictures of it, that they were entering the Tennessee Valley Fair. But they've also got a cafe that they run out of the culinary arts where teachers and students have an app on their phone, which, by the way, was written by the IT instructor at the CTE school. He wrote the app and showed kids how to create apps for their phones. And if you don't like what's on the menu at the school, you go to the Cafe 304, which is their name of their restaurant, and you can pick something else that in the culinary arts kids will prepare it for you, and you have a different lunch than everybody else. We can do this kind of stuff now today. They had an ambulance that had come into they have an auto repair facility that has a framing machine that can align the frames. One of the only ones in Knox County that has a auto repair facility that can align the frame of the car. Well, the ambulance was heavily damaged in the front from a car accident, but the back was just fine. They decided not to repair the ambulance because it was too expensive. So the school said, well, hey, we have a whole bunch of pre-med kids that are studying to be in the medical sciences. Can we have the ambulance? So their high school kids are working in a relatively new ambulance in that confined space with real world experience, and now they're trying to get them trained to be EMTs. By the time they leave high school, they will be registered EMTs at the same time. So oftentimes in education, all we hear is about the bad stuff, and that's my other job, is to talk about that. Bill will tell you, I've been on a tirade for the last couple of years about reading proficiency. We're horrible. I mean, we can talk about all the other great things we do, but Knox County's a little bit higher, but we just got some results. We had a meeting at the State House about 3 weeks ago with the Department of Education. We're at 33% of our children read on grade level in the 3rd grade. 33%. And that's horrible. I mean, you would think that somebody would be just railing on this, but everybody seems to be content with it. You don't see parents in an outrage. You don't see our school board members pitching a fit about this. And this is actually lower than it was. And one of the things the mayor wants to do is we spend more money today than we've ever spent on education. We have more reading coaches, more intervention programs, RTI. We've got all these things out there to help improve educational, especially the reading component, and we're doing worse. And so one of the things I'm doing is going to different schools. You would think the public school is all this giant like monolith. They all do the exact same thing. They all do a bunch of different derivations of the same thing. And what we're trying to figure out is what is going to work, and let's replicate that as much as we can. And it may work. It may be that maybe 5 inner city schools need this program, but 8 other inner city schools need a different reading program because they have a different style or demographic or culture or whatever that they're working with. You know, one of the schools here in Knox County that has predominantly been a black school was Lonsdale. But in the last 5 years, it is now 65% Guatemalan. In 5 years, it has changed. And so we need different resources there. The other thing I'm supposed to do is collaborate. You know, when I was talking to the food prep facility out in South Doyle, some of it's a little aged. A lot of our CTE programs have stuff that's, we're teaching kids technology on machinery that's 20, 25 years old. So they're gonna get some skills and they're gonna go out there and find out nobody does it that way anymore. So I was talking to the kitchen facility guy and I said, you know, if we could do a collaboration between, say, you and Mike Chase with Calhoun's or maybe the Aubrey's family and get them to get you some more up-to-date, would you be cool with that? And he goes, I'd love stuff like that because, you know, we just built a new kitchen out in Carnes for their food prep. It's $400,000 in equipment, you know, but somebody, I said, well, we had this thing happen a couple years ago at Carnes where we had our tuba break. And the band director's going around to all the different clubs looking for money. And so he comes, I got him $1,000 from the business association, but he comes to the community club and says, does the same pitch that he gave the business association. The community club goes, you know, we've given you people money before and it just goes into a giant black hole. There's like no accountability for that money. And he goes, well, what are you asking for? She goes, well, we just want to know if we give you money that you really are going to buy a tuba. And he goes, what do you want, like a plaque on the tuba? She goes, yeah, I think we do. Now, what she was talking about was a little brass plate about this big. But to them, that was worth $1,000. Because how many times if your business owner has somebody come to your business and ask for $500 for this and $300, and you never know that it really gets there? And so the band director at the time goes, I'm not gonna, that's stupid, I'm not gonna, I said, then you don't get $1,000. And it was a $5,000 tuba we're looking for. And I said, Keith, go to Things Remember, go get a 39-cent little brass plate that says compliments of the Carnes Community Club, stick it on the tuba with a little paste or glue, take a picture, and let's move on. You know, we've got to start thinking of doing private-public collaboration with our school system. You know, there are businesses who want to help, but they don't know how. Yesterday I was talking to the chamber. There's a group called the TSBA, which is the School Board Association, and they have actually come out with a scholarship program designed for business owners for exactly this exact reason. You will pick one of 4 general categories that you like maybe it's character development or reading proficiency, and when you give your money, it stays in your community and it only goes for that. And they've got both transparency and accountability because the TSBA has figured out this is what's lacking and we just give money and we never know what it's doing or where it's going. Last week I visited with the Greater School Partnership and we talked about one of the reasons they were created is because they could be more innovative than, say, the school board, because the school board is taking care of everybody, so the Greater School. So they talk about how they give small loans many times to our teachers who want to try a new program out of the school. And it's like, well, great, we've done that for 5, 6, 7 years. Have any of them worked? Well, that's the part that's missing. We start programs, but we don't really evaluate them to see what's really working the best. And that's going to be part of my job too. The other thing that Bill and I can both testify about is at the state government level, we start programs, we never end them. Is that about right? And then what happens when we try to end them, Bill? Everybody shows up and they whine and cry and carry on because 4 people are getting some kind of a benefit out of this thing. But it was designed to help thousands, and we've got 4 people, and they're the loud mouths that show up and raise a ruckus in the Capitol. It's the same thing at the local level. You know, we start programs, and they're not working, but yet we continue to fund them, thinking, okay, maybe this year they're going to. No, they haven't worked in 10 or 15 years. We probably need to stop them. That'll be part of that's the unpopular part of my job. You know, is where we start looking at stuff and going, does this work? Now, every county's different. I'm not sure what it is in Claiborne County, but in Knox County, 62% of all tax dollars go to education. And every year, the school system gets a little bit more because we have something called maintenance of effort. It's a state law that says you get exactly what you got last year. The inference is you get a little bit more too, because the cost of everything goes up every year. So, you know, at 62%, the next year it'll be, you'll hear our school superintendent go, I have a reasonable budget. He never says he's found any efficiencies that he can cut the budget. He's got a reasonable budget. He's going to increase the budget 1, 2, 3, 4%. Well, he doesn't have to cut the budget because with maintenance of effort, he gets exactly what he got last year plus a little bit more. But every year, 62 becomes 64, becomes 67, becomes 81, and pretty soon the mayor is working with less and less money because he only gets what's left over to pay our sheriff, pave roads, provide county services, and all that other stuff. So he wants somebody who's got kind of an eagle eye on this thing, asking, are we using the money in the most efficient and effective manner? And that's basically what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be a team player where I'm collaborating with, like I said, the Aubreys or and then also pointing out some things to people. I had somebody call me, they didn't want to discuss it publicly. You know, sometimes groups work differently than individual people. And this was about, again, we have a program called Ride and Decide. It's where we take children who are teenagers and show them craft trades. Maybe it's construction or brickwork or whatever. And, you know, the school I was looking at, I thought it was a country school because it was way out in the bush. But they have a whole bunch, because of the zoning, the way it was designed, they have children from inner city Knoxville, they have children from the country, they have city from suburbia, all mixed together. And they said, well, one of the problems with this program is the kids in the inner city aren't even going to apply because they have no way to get there. There's no bus route. And so we need to actually focus maybe looking on businesses on the CAP route as opposed to finding people just willy-nilly anywhere. That's a smart idea. We need to think like that because we need, you know, I don't know if you've noticed the construction trades lately, but we're desperate for people. If you can show up in vertical and if you can pass a urinalysis, we have children in the room, so my other option was if you can pass that and show up daily, generally within the time that we want you to start, you have a job. Because the construction trades are desperate for people. And it's just teaching them a lot of basic skills that many of us just already knew. You know, when I was talking to the culinary arts teacher, he said, well, you know, I have to teach basic knife handling skills. Which I remember as a kid, my mother's knife handling skills was she put me out in the garage with a 10-pound bag of potatoes and said, hey, when you get done, we can have dinner. That was my intensive knife handling course. But, you know, he has to teach them. You don't whittle towards yourself with the knife. You know, you do this. And just skills like that we just aren't passing on to our children somehow. Customer service skills. They have got a cafe. They took out all their vending machines in South Doyle. So there's no Cokes or water machines or anything, no potato chip anything. They have a cafe. Now the IT teacher who also wrote the app, they do attendance with this app because they have a scanning bar. And almost every child in this school has a cell phone. So that kind of cuts one thing out of the schedule. But the other thing they're doing is they're using it to, you get 5 points when you show up at school. They were having some serious attendance problems. But with this app, the kids know they get points, which goes into account that you can use for buying coffees, getting, potato chips or snacks in the afternoon. You can use to buy prom tickets. So if your family has no money at home for prom tickets, you can still go to prom, but you're going to have to show up at school every day and then go to some of these after school activities. Maybe it's the rugby team is having an event, so they'll tell the students by text, go see Mrs. Rodriguez at the rugby field at 4 p.m. and her phone scans their phone. And they get points that goes into that account, so they have money to spend. But guess what? It also works the other way. When you perform poorly and you have a bad attitude, guess what it does? It subtracts points too. So these kids have quickly figured out, I'm going to show up, I'm going to be pleasant, I'm going to pay attention, and it helps the minor sports, or maybe it's the French club is doing a poetry reading, or drama is doing, and a lot of the kids don't want to go. They'll go because they get points to help themselves out. And so it's all a really neat thing going on out there. And I would say nobody even knew this was going on. Did you know it was? Because I didn't know it was all going on. Because so many times all we hear is about the bad things about education. There are lots of good things going on out there. So that's basically, like, tomorrow I'll be at Fulton. They have a whole different set of issues going on out there. They have a different CTE program. That's one of the things I didn't realize, that career and technical education is vastly different across this county. Some schools have 6 programs, some have 1, some have none. I mean, I know out in my district in Carnes, the children from Powell and Hardin Valley and at one point Farragut came to Carnes to learn wood shop, cosmetology, drafting, all these other things. I think every one of those schools needs to have their own. And maybe it's not everybody learning wood shop. We talked today about cybersecurity. You can teach a class in cybersecurity, get people designations to where they're able to go out into the workforce and do that in just a basic classroom with no additional, just a couple computers and some basic classroom space. Okay, maybe we need to work on that. And one of the things I'm going to be doing at Fulton is asking the kids, what do you want to do? I mean, we keep thinking we need to have them all in the trades, but their perception of what they need to do may be very different. It's not going to be, I'm just going to play video games. That's my career choice. We need something that can actually make some money. But at the same time, they may have a totally different perspective of what they would like to see CTE be. And the other thing, like I said, is reading. We've got to fix the reading part. In fact, Bill and I will tell you, we have a state law that says you won't socially promote children if they're not ready to go to the next grade. And yet last year we had 44 of our 95 counties not retain a single student. Now we're reading at 33%, and we have a state law that says you won't promote, and so my question is, which one is it? Why are you pushing these kids along? Because you're just going to set them up for failure. And they're not dumb. They just haven't learned the skills to read. And so they get frustrated and angry, and then that becomes a whole different set of problems that we deal with. Maybe if we retained them for a little bit and worked with them. Because one of our school board members mentioned this. We used to have kindergarten, we had K1, and then we had first grade. And K1 was where you did kindergarten, but you're really not quite ready to go to first grade, either emotionally or socially or maybe skill-wise. Well, guess what we got rid of? K1, we didn't have the money. Well, maybe we need to find some money. And the mayor wants to help do that. And so that's what I'm in charge of doing. So who's got questions?